from the San Francisco Bay Area. This is Athletics Talk Now with Dale Tafoya, one of the fastest growing podcasts about your Oakland A's. Join us as we celebrate the past and embrace the future of A's baseball. Let's jump right into the action with author, host, and journalist Dale Tafoya.
I get excited this time of year. I'm excited about the first week of the baseball season. I'm excited about the Oakland A's. I'm excited about this podcast. I'm excited about my three guests on the show today. And I'm excited about the A's fan base. You say, why, Dale? Because some of you, aside from the passion and resilience of A's fans, some of you are talented. Some of you are entrepreneurs. Some of you have used your passion for this franchise and channeled greatness. I remember back in the early 2000s and the internet was just taking shape. Now, I've always read A's coverage in newspapers, and I always emailed the writers my thoughts about the A's, whether they were playing good or bad. That was my therapy during some tough A's seasons. Until I bumped into this blog. And this blog was dedicated to A's baseball. This blog talked about the A's season, A's players, coaches, and A's fans were able to chime in on everything about the A's. They were also able to meet other A's fans. So I took my passion and jumped right into this online community. I was in heaven. A few months later, the community started to grow. A year later, I'm reading a Billy Beane interview on the site. A few years later, this online community exploded and was featured in Sports Illustrated. This guy that started the site, a guy by the name of Tyler Blazinski, was just a humble A's fan with a dream. Today, Athletics Nation is one of the most powerful and influential blogs in the sports community. From that once humble online community where some A's fans just wanted to talk A's, SB Nation was born. Some of you have taken your love affair for the green and gold and started blogs, clothing lines, podcasts. Some of you have rapped about the A's. Some of you have used your passion for the A's to bake, to start a graphic design company, to start a YouTube channel, a startup company. But there's more of you out there. There's a nagging tug in your heart to channel your passion for the A's and pioneer something like Tyler Blazinski did. You see, A's fans are not only passionate and resilient, they're creative and talented. Welcome, A's fans across the globe. My name is Dale Tafoya, and this is another episode of AthleticsTalkNow.com, a podcast that celebrates the past and embraces the future of A's baseball. It is Thursday, April 3rd, 2014, and this is podcast number 127. Make sure to listen to us on iTunes and our YouTube channel, Athletics Talk Now. And without wasting any time, A's radio voice Ken Korach is joining us, but he's not only the A's radio voice these days. He wrote a book about the legendary late broadcaster Bill King that was released back in September. I've went on record to say that his book, Holy Toledo, will go down as one for the ages in Bay Area sports history. Ken, it's opening week. Spring training is over. A's baseball is back and sounds as great as ever on the radio. Welcome back to the Bay Area, author Ken Korach.
Thank you, Dale. It's great to be with you. And I think beside the fact that the weather has been a little bit iffy, it's been great to be back up here and getting going.
We talked about your off-season activities before, Ken, but how different was this past off-season now that you're an author?
Well, thanks for asking. It was a lot more relaxing than last year was. Because, as you know, during the off season before the 2013 season, I spent a lot of the time researching and writing the book. So I did do some book signings, did 4 or 5 up here in the Bay Area during the off season, spent some time promoting the book, but there's no question that it was a lot more laid back as far as this past off season than the one before.
Ken, of course, you started calling games for the A's back in 1996, along with Bill King and Ray Fosse. How different of a broadcaster are you now than you were 18 years ago?
That's a great question. I'm not sure how to answer that, Dale. Maybe you'd be better off because you've been listening to me for all these years.
That's right.
But, you'd like to think the one thing that I've always said is that you can always work to get better. So I'd hope that I'm better now than I was in 1996. And this is even something that I've mentioned to a lot of the young broadcasters that I've worked with over the years, and that is no matter what level you're at and no matter how much money you're making or if you're in single A or you're broadcasting college games or big league games, you can always work to get better. And so I would hope that over time, that because of that I've improved. I think that one of the things from a personal standpoint is that I'm a lot less introspective, I think, about the broadcast. I mean, I don't think anybody could be as tough on myself as I am. I can still beat myself up pretty badly after a broadcast that I feel is less than my best, but I'm kind of learning to accept that all you can really do, Dale, in whatever line of work you're in, is give it your best shot. And so that's the main thing to me. If I can leave the booth after a game and ask myself, did I give it my best shot tonight? Then I can be pretty satisfied with that.
Switching our attention to A's fans, Ken, your listeners. Sometimes I feel as fans, A's fans get a raw deal from the national media. The crowds may not be the biggest, and sometimes you hear the fan base referred as fledgling, decaying, or dying by some writers. And you travel from city to city with the A's. How unique are A's fans, Ken?
Well, A's fans are fantastic, and you mentioned the book, Dale, and that's been the most heartwarming thing about writing the book and the reaction to it, and that is hearing from so many fans of the A's. I mean, I was talking to between games of the doubleheader the A's played against the Indians last night, and just talking to one of the Indians broadcasters, and the crowd obviously was not going to be real big for the second game of the day night, but yet the feeling was, and you hear this from other broadcasters and scouts and people who travel all over baseball, they love the A's fans because of the loyalty and the passion and the sense that even if the crowd is, let's say, less than 20,000, if it's not a great crowd at the ballpark, you hear the people because of the commitment to the team and the passion that the A's fans have for the team. And I can tell you this, Dale, that having been with the A's for 19 years, I've never heard the A's fans or noticed them as much as I did this year in spring training. They talk about a fan base that travels well. The A's fan base travels well. They were all over the Cactus League. They were louder than some of the home fans, even for the road games, for the Cactus League games. And if you can imagine, we had a book signing before the last Saturday that the A's had down in the spring against the Mariners on the 22nd of March. And I was out there signing for an hour and a half. And there was a steady line of maybe 3, 4, 5 people the whole time. And that's just testament to how amazing the A's fans have been and the interest that they've taken in this team. And I think the fan base actually has been growing hand in hand with the success of the team on the field.
The voice you're hearing is Ken Korach, radio voice of your Oakland A's. And on the field, Ken, looking back at the last 10 years of A's baseball, the A's reached the ALCS back in 2006, then had a playoff drought from 2007 to 2011. Then suddenly the 2012 season comes out of nowhere. Now they're back-to-back AL West champs. You cover the Big Three era with Mulder, Hudson, and Zito. Some call it the Moneyball A's. How would you characterize this recent run, Ken?
Well, it's been thrilling. And the thing people always say, well, how come you can't get past the fifth game? And that was the case for those great A's teams that went to the postseason 4 consecutive years beginning in 2000. And as you know, they lost in the fifth game each time back then as well. Well, try facing Justin Verlander in the fifth game of a playoff series 2 years in a row. There aren't many teams that would have beaten him the way that he pitched in the fifth game against the A's last year. I still go back, though, Dale, and it's hard to compare teams, but through all the years that I've broadcast for the A's, I really thought the 2001 team was, and I know you and I have talked about this, I think the 2001 team was the best team in terms of the talent on the field, that was a great array of stars. And if the A's really have ever had a great shot to win a World Series, I really thought that club was the team that could have done it. Although, one thing, it's not like the A's looked back on last year and said we were content to get to the postseason. I really felt that after winning 96 games in the regular year last year, this club was a team that had its sights set on a much greater goal, and that is going all the way. And they felt they could do it. And again, they ran into a very tough Tiger team with outstanding pitching in that division series last year.
And looking at the offseason, Ken, departed were Bartolo Colon, Grant Balfour, Chris Young, Seth Smith, Brett Anderson, and some others. But as fans, we're always conditioned and confident that Billy's going to replace them somehow with someone comparable. Was there a departure this offseason, Ken, that concerned you the most?
Well, it didn't concern me. There really wasn't any great concern that I had about the departures because I think, as you said, Billy went out and did a great job of filling those holes almost immediately. They had that flurry of moves in the offseason when they really went out and fortified their rotation. I think it's very easy to overreact. The fact that Jim Johnson has struggled in his two outings, I think everybody feels that he'll get back on track. The real blow came during the spring. It wasn't so much losing players in the off season and then the reaction to that by filling in. The fact that you lose Jarrett Parker and A.J. Griffin to injury, I think has created maybe the biggest question marks going into the regular year. I have a lot of confidence in Jesse Chavez and Tommy Malone, but those are two big blows. And I think in any situation with any club, if you lose 40% of your starting rotation, there are going to be some questions and then some curiosity as to how the guys that are coming in are going to fare in those spots.
Mm-hmm. And focusing our attention on the place the A's call home in your workplace for some 80 games, Ken. Reports are that the A's are looking to keep renting at the Coliseum another 10 years, and I've confirmed that as well from the Coliseum Authority. How much do the inconveniences of working in an antiquated stadium affect you as a broadcaster, and would you like to see a new baseball-only stadium built in Oakland?
Well, first of all, I've said this for many times, that as a fan of the ball club and someone who, even back in the days when I was broadcasting in the minor leagues, those seasons would end after 5 months. And so I'd have September in the Bay Area, and I was broadcasting college football back then, to go to the Coliseum as a fan, and I used to love it. But I've said this, that from the time the Raiders came back and Mount Davis was built, I have felt, and Dale, this is no secret, and you and I have talked about this, that the integrity of the Coliseum as a baseball park was really compromised when the Raiders came back and they built Mount Davis. I thought it was a lovely place for baseball for many years. So there's no question that the Coliseum, I think, has served its time. Its usefulness, I think, has passed as a baseball facility. And the A's, and I wouldn't say this about any organization or every organization or any team in sports, that automatically a new stadium is a panacea. There's no question the A's need a new ballpark, and I would just love to see that. Now, as far as my own experience, we have a nice broadcast booth up there. We have a good vantage point, so it's not a real hindrance as far as I'm concerned. I miss looking out and seeing the view of the Oakland Hills and real baseball bleachers out there from, I guess, an ambiance standpoint. I miss what we used to have, and you'd love to have bigger crowds. I think any announcer would love to come out and see 30,000 fans and the great energy at the ballpark, and I think with a new stadium, you would have that because people forget that back before the Giants got their new stadium, when the Giants were at Candlestick Park, there were several years in which the A's outdrew the Giants. And so I'm still convinced that this is a two-team market, Dale. And I think if the A's did have a new ballpark, they could go head-to-head with the Giants in terms of attendance. And I think we'd all love to see that because you kind of live for those moments when you have that kind of great energy at the ballpark.
Ken, what's your thoughts on instant replay so far?
Well, it's, the one thing that I don't want to see, Dale, would be that if replay becomes the story, and there have been so many articles written, and we've spent so much time already talking about it on the broadcast, and I know that we're in the embryonic stages of replay in baseball, and so this is going to change. And hopefully the whole thing will morph into more of, I guess, a feeling of normalcy when you have replay in a game. game one of the doubleheader between the A's and the Indians, it takes 4.5 minutes to go back to New York and get a decision rendered, and that's just too long. You can't have those kinds of stops and starts in a game. And then the replay becomes more of a story, and it becomes a sideshow. And I don't really want to see that at all. And those disruptions are just not ideal for the flow of the game. So I would hope that as things move along, that it becomes much more seamless, and it becomes less of the story, and we can just focus on playing baseball, because I do have some concerns about it. I think I might even have a bigger concern right now about the collision rule at home plate, and I'm really curious to see how that plays out, because there was that scenario opening night with the play at the plate involving John Jaso, and I thought they got it right when they consulted with replay. But if, let's say, for instance, that play had been overturned, now you're not really playing baseball. So I think you still got to give the catcher the chance on a play like that, on a line drive, and things are happening that quickly. How is he going to process everything and think, where am I setting up? Where is my left foot in relation to the baseline and the runner coming down? So I just don't want to see the game change that much when it comes to the home plate collision rule.
Anything new with the book, Ken? Any new news about Holy Toledo?
Well, thanks for asking. There isn't anything that I can really talk about that's new, Dale, except to go back to what I had mentioned before, and that is that it's just been so heartwarming hearing from fans of the A's and fans of Bill. I can say this, that we've certainly surpassed our expectations in terms of sales, and there's a decent chance that we might even see some more distribution nationwide, because I think people are picking up on the fact that the book has done awfully well out here in the Bay Area at the bookstores that have carried it. We've been thrilled with the response and the enthusiasm from the people who have been running these bookstores and involved in the sales of the book. And obviously on Amazon, there's a great opportunity because of people, the opportunity to go online, and you can order a book from Amazon all around the world, which you never really had. You never really had that shot, 15, 20 years ago. So it's just amazing to me, Dale, the impact that Bill had, and the heartwarming experience for me, because this is a man who touched so many people. And I think from the experience of writing this book, and obviously when Bill passed away, or when anyone passes away, it leaves a huge void. And I think maybe in the kind of romantic sense of what we do and writing a book, maybe the writing of this book has filled that void a little bit, and maybe brought Bill back for some people who didn't have that sense of closure after he passed away. So there may be the possibility of 2 or 3 more book signings. I've been asked about that several times, so it's possible that we might do some of those as we get going a little bit later in the season. But thank you for asking, and thank you for all your support. And like I said earlier, I just have to give a great thanks to the A's fans and sports fans in general in the Bay Area, because I tried to give equal attention to the Warriors and the Raiders. So I've heard from a lot of Raider fans and Warrior fans too, who kind of grew up with Bill and were really touched by the work that he did and the man that he was.
That's the great Ken Korach. Ken, thanks for your time, and it's always a pleasure talking A's baseball with you.
Well, thanks for having me, Dale. I appreciate all of your support.
Take care. And moving right along, thanks to the great Ken Korach for giving us some time. And I'd like to welcome our second guest on today's podcast. Susan Slusser has been providing us A's coverage through the San Francisco Chronicle for about 15 years. She has a national platform as president of the Baseball Writers Association of America. And just by reading her tweets and A's coverage, you can tell that she has a strong work ethic. And there's a reason she's at where she's at. Susan, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dale. Thanks for the nice words.
Mm-hmm. How did you choose this career path as a reporter, Susan? And is this something that you wanted to pursue as a child?
Yeah, actually, when I was little, I really wanted to be a radio play-by-play announcer, a baseball play-by-play announcer, which is still sort of the thing that I would most want to do. Ken Korach would tell you I'm always constantly trying to figure out how to steal his job away from him. And I did both radio and some TV stuff, and worked at sports departments of student newspapers all the way through high school and college. So I got a taste of both and did internships in radio, TV, and newspapers, and got a full-time job at the Sacramento Bee, and that kind of decided things for me. But I still have a real love for radio sportscasting as well.
You know, Susan, you've been doing this a while, and you're very active in providing coverage on your Twitter account. Describe, as a journalist, how you've had to adjust to this online social media explosion that has changed the landscape of journalism.
Well, I think it's ever evolving, and I'm not sure that the traditional media outlets or even the newer media outlets all know exactly the best way to handle social media. If your regular readership wants more of it, wants less of it, it's a constant balancing act. I'm always in favor of any tool that gets news out quickly. I think the problem with some of the social media for some of the more traditional outlets is there's not really a way to monetize it. So you're asking, reporters and other people to do a lot of extra work that's not necessarily bringing in revenue. But I think as everyone's figuring it out, it is important to still provide news to the people that are interested and might be, avid followers, listeners of a particular team, and also might wind up subscribing to your actual real product or, being patronizing your advertisers, things like that.
And we, of course, cover a great deal of A's history on the podcast. Susan, tell me about your favorite A's team you've covered since you've been covering the team.
Wow. Every year is so different, and Billy Beane is so good at bringing in quality people year after year. I've got to say that the manager does make a difference to a reporter's everyday life, and I don't think we've had a better one to deal with than Bob Melvin. Art Howe is a really, the Moneyball depiction aside, Art Howe is actually very delightful for the media to deal with also. But Bob Melvin might be the best combination of players manager, media manager, just all-around guy who gets it in every way, shape, and form, which when you're talking to somebody several times a day and really relying on them as your major daily source of information makes a huge difference. And these days also have been successful teams and fun teams to deal with in terms of the individuals on the team too. But it all starts at the top, and I don't think that there's anyone in baseball who's better for a reporter to cover than Billy Beane for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. The success of the organization, his accessibility, and he was one of the best quotes in professional sports. So we're really lucky. We're actually very spoiled all the way around.
And looking at the player personnel, Susan, there's been some buzz from A's fans about the A's fascination with Derek Barton, who came to the A's in the Mark Mulder trade in 1952. Actually 2004. Beane obviously sees something in this guy. How much of a bad rap do you think Barton gets, Susan?
Well, there does seem to be a split on Barton. I think if you talk to anybody that's a fan of advanced metrics, I think they all see the value that Barton brings. He does have a very high on-base percentage. His defense is usually a plus when you're looking at things like WAR. There's no doubt there's value about him. I think the fact that he has been with the organization for so long, he's been up and down, and for quite some time has not had a really regular spot on the roster, I think has been frustrating, not just for fans, but I think even for people in the organization. He's the thing with the A's, as you well know, as everyone who's a fan knows, is they can't afford to have the superstar players that can do everything. That's why this platoon system they have works so well. You find different guys who can do different things, and then you sort of mix and match. I think Barton is a very good guy in that system because he does do some things that not everyone does. But I think everyone, myself included, for a number of years, were frustrated watching him take a lot of pitches, especially in situations where, runners at, say, third with less than 2 out, maybe you'd want to see a guy swinging the bat a little more. He's addressed that. He's actually been much more aggressive, and I think that people have maybe not noticed that quite as well as they should. It's a fascinating case. He's a really interesting case because there is such strong opinion about him on both sides.
And there's been some concern about closer Jim Johnson's first couple of outings, Susan. The A's have a deep bullpen, obviously. How much patience do you forecast the A's having with Johnson as their closer?
It's really tough to say because Bob Melvin at times has shown that he will quickly make a move. I think, 2 years ago when the A's were kind of going back and forth between Fuentes and then Balfour, then Cook, and then Fuentes again, some of those changes happened pretty quickly. But Jim Johnson does have an excellent track record. And like any closer, any reliever period, they all go through little down stretches. It's hugely magnified at the start of the season, which is really unfair. When you think a guy coming to a new team, he's putting a little extra pressure on himself.
Sure.
He's probably a little amped up. I would think that they would, if anything, give him a little extra time as a result. Let him maybe try to get settled in. I think the best thing for Jim Johnson is the fact the team is going on the road for a very extended trip starting next Sunday. It's a 11, 12-day trip. The A's have lots and lots of long trips to start off the season. I think maybe once he gets away from kind of this is my new place and I've got to perform for these fans and they already hate me, I think he's going to be a lot better.
And delving into the A's current home, a place they call home, Susan, the Oakland Coliseum, and it sounds as if Lou Wolf is interested in renting there for a long period of time. He doesn't sound like he wants to build a new stadium in Oakland, and the A's could be at the Coliseum reportedly another 10 years. Wow, the Oakland Coliseum, home of the 2024 A's. How much of a reality is that, Susan?
Well, if they were to come to any sort of agreement on a 10-year lease, I think that both sides would probably have some outs, depending on, say, what happens with the Raiders, what happens in San Jose's court case. There's no way it's a straight-up ironclad 10-year lease. I think there would be contingencies for a lot of different things. But I do think that this is a recognition on the A's part that nothing is going to be happening very quickly anywhere. They're not getting a new stadium in San Jose anytime soon. There's a court case going on. Even if things were resolved ultimately in their favor, that would take some time. Probably we're looking at several years. And then you have construction time. So that would be quite a ways off. If they get anything in Oakland, obviously that's going to take, even identifying a site has so far proven to be difficult. There seems to be no real consensus. And then you talk about who's going to pay for it. The A's don't want to pay for a stadium, as you mentioned, in Oakland, whereas they would try to get the private financing in San Jose. So then you add that on. It's so complicated, I think, a 10-year lease would make a lot of sense to the A's. And you have to think it would make sense for the Coliseum, too. The A's are by far their best tenant. They bring in the most revenue simply because they have double the dates of anything else. And, they're really the tenants that whose interests have been taken into account the least by the Alameda County Coliseum Commission. Their frustrations are pretty real and many of them for legitimate reasons. So, again, yet another fascinating sort of side topic with the Oakland A's.
How big of a concern, Susan, is the plumbing system there and how that facility handles rain?
Well, the facility is not getting any younger, and it is the field level is 22 feet below sea level. So the combination of sort of the age of some of the plumbing and where it's situated and how close it is to the bay, all sorts of things. It's not a good situation. And people say, well, this doesn't happen to the Raiders. Well, the A's clubhouse is all a level down. And people say, well, we don't hear about it during the rainy season because they're not playing then. It does happen. There's regular flooding there in the baseball offseason. This is not something new. This has been going on for years and years. People around the A's have talked about it for years. People have moved offices from the Coliseum side over to the arena side in previous years because of leaks and flooding and things like this. This is a very real problem. And I don't know how much there is to do about it unless, eventually there's a new building. It's just going to happen. It's an old, anybody with an old house can tell you stuff breaks, stuff falls apart, you need things taken care of, and this is one where, unless you have a completely new structure, I can't see where there's going to be any sort of major improvements anytime soon.
As always, Susan, great stuff. I love seeing you on MLB Network. Great catching up with you, and thank you for your thorough A's coverage through the years.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate it.
That was Susan Slusser, great A's beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. And now joining me on the line is A's GM Billy Beane. And Billy, you just celebrated a birthday this past Saturday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, Dale. All it does is a reminder of that. Well, I like to say 52 is the new 51, and I feel like I'm 51.
Billy, how happy are you with the club you've assembled this season?
Listen, I like our club. I think we're a very balanced club. We suffered a couple tough blows in spring and losing Jared Parker for the year and then losing, AJ at least for the foreseeable future. So that was a tough blow. I think we've built in some depth purposely in the offseason, tried to do it in as many positions as possible. And so, it's given some guys like Jesse Chavez a chance who we've always wanted to give an opportunity. That being said, sports, particularly baseball, in many cases is not just a game of talent, it's a game of attrition. And to have to go to that depth at such an early time in the year, obviously is a concern. It doesn't leave you a lot of room for error in the injury department. But overall, I think it's a balanced club, I don't think any really sort of outstanding weaknesses. We've got a lot of players who do a lot of different things to complement themselves, but I'm sure just like any baseball season, we'll have to make some adjustments on the fly during the course of the season as we see things play out.
On Tuesday, Billy, you guys had a rainout at the Coliseum for the first time since 1998. What do you do at the office during rain delays?
Oh, man. You know what? I didn't realize it had been 17 years until David told me that, because it seemed we certainly had games that have been threatened by rain, but I didn't realize a complete rainout, so that is a long time. That day was, I think we called the game about 5:45 or so. I had a little bit of work in the office. I was catching up, so I was able to at least get home and have dinner with my kids and family. And made for, I would say, a long day, with a double header, because usually, on a night game, we're usually there in the morning and there all night, so it didn't really change the schedule too much having two games. But I don't think anyone likes rainouts, particularly given it really can mess up your pitching schedule. We had to bring up Josh Lindblom to start. The Indians were in a position where they had an off day today. We didn't, so we had to bring up the 26th man and use him. So, but I think we got out of it okay. And once again, unfortunately, didn't go into extra innings. So, but rainouts are never good. You want to stay on schedule.
Moving our attention to the team, Billy. The A's historically have had some great closers. Raleigh Fingers, Dennis Eckersley among them. And baseball in general has designated a role as a quote-unquote closer. You're a progressive thinker. What value do you place on a closer versus the concept of closer by committee? And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, in many ways, any sort of pattern we've developed in closers is really a lot of it based on, the cost. And, I don't think anyone's going to ever diminish the value of anybody who, on the 25-man roster in today's world. And, I think we all value them. It's just for us, we're constantly having to sort of reinvent that position, and it's mainly because of cost as much as anything. Listen, at some point, someone's going to close for you, and the better they are, the easier certainly it is on everybody. But listen, like every part, it's a high leverage, situation. One-run games where you need 3 outs. There's definitely an emotional part of that game that comes into play when you win or you lose. Listen, it's a very important part. But the challenge for us is how, when you're cutting up the piece of the pie, how you allocate your resources, given the contribution. But closer is just a high-profile position too. So when they succeed or fail, there's always going to be a lot of focus on it and on that one inning.
Billy, one ability that I've always admired about you is being able to replace a departed player. Lots of players have come and gone through the years. Bartolo Colon signs with the Mets, and here comes Scott Kazmir. Balfour signs with the Rays, and here comes Jim Johnson. What's your approach in filling a void that a departed player left?
Well, there's something to be said about having continuity. That's for sure. One of the things we had last year with the club is that we were able to bring back the majority of the 2012 club back, and we were able to add to it, in Jed Lowry and Jay. So we had some departures this year, as you mentioned, those guys. And so there was, part of this year's challenge was replacing those players. And as we go through the season, sort of, how good those replacements are as it relates to the previous guys in that position, sort of once again plays out. But that there is something to be said. It's nice to have continuity, not just from a fan standpoint, from a management standpoint, but also even from a health standpoint. When you have players for a number of years, Bob understands, like a guy like Coco, who now has been here a long time. Bob understands how to sort of manage a player who's such a high quality, important part of the team, but also realizing that, listen, Coco's 34. Yesterday, we gave him the day off, the second game of the doubleheader, and you're thinking, wow, it's only the first couple games of the season. And, Coco feels great, but it's really important to make sure that we're managing, over the course of 162 games, and you want that player out there for as many games as possible, and sometimes it's necessary to rest him. And if you know that player and you know how to handle him, because he's been there for a few years, it helps. And so that's another thing that the continuity helps. It helps manage the course of the season with injury.
The voice you're hearing is A's GM Billy Beane. And Billy, one thing I've always gleaned from our conversations is besides being a general manager of the Oakland A's, you're an A's fan. Tell me about Billy Beane, the A's fan, and if you were a ticket-buying fan, where would you want to sit at the Oakland Coliseum?
Where would I want to sit? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wouldn't want to sit next to me because I'd be miserable to sit next to. Because like any passionate fan, you get emotional. I gotta move around. I gotta walk around. So I'm not real good. The one good thing about sitting next to me is I probably wouldn't be in the seat for very long, so you'd have an extra seat next to you. But listen, I don't think anybody gets in this job in this position without being a fan. I mean, that's how I started. I grew up as a Padre fan, for goodness sake. My best year as a fan was at 500 seasons. We had a 500-year one year when I was a kid, and it seemed like we won the World Series. But what I liked most about rooting for the Padres, despite the fact that they were, they were an expansion team when I started rooting for them at 7, is that you could always hope. It didn't always end up turning out that way, and many seasons were torpedoed. And that's what I've always thought as a general manager. Even there's times where we're rebuilding, I've always tried to at least give some, hey, maybe the team's not great this year, but they got a chance to get better. And I've always kept that in mind, is to try and create some direction that somebody has an interest in looking forward to the next game. Whether, A, you have a chance to win that game because you're good, or you have a chance to get better because you're young. And, that's always been a sort of internal compass that I've used. And listen, the fact of the matter is I think, Dale, you might have told me, I was my 26, I don't know how many years I've been with it.
A little over 25.
25 years, almost 26 years, and I didn't realize that. That's really rare in this business, and I feel real fortunate. I can't imagine the idea that I would have such a passionate rooting interest in a baseball team more than this one, and the idea of not always being part of the Oakland Athletics is something that no longer could even enter my mind because of I feel proud of being able to work for a franchise that's had its challenges too. Let's face it. There's always new challenges in this place, and we've survived at times, and at other times we found a way to thrive. But the challenge is always there, and there's a lot of reward in overcoming some of those challenges and being successful. And our fans, are part of that culture. We've got such a hardcore following that, listen, we have the largest season ticket base, but the people who come out regularly, I mean, they love this team like no other team, and that's really unique.
I know, Billy, you always focus your attention on crafting a competitive team in the field. What are your thoughts, speaking of challenges, what are your thoughts about possibly playing at the Coliseum another 10 years? And is there a specific renovation upgrade you'd like to see done at the Coliseum?
Well, you know what? Listen, one thing I've particularly done in the last couple of years is, there's a lot of noise surrounding the venue, and we've had, incidents that become sort of national stories. I mean, I've sort of kind of divorced myself from getting a part of that conversation because I say, hey, listen, what we have now is a lot of fun. It's a great product. Let's enjoy it and do the best we have and let the other things sort of play out. As far as, improvements at the Coliseum, I mean, listen, I was talking the other day on opening day, and I was back here, before, when aesthetically, when you sat here, particularly on a day game and you saw the hills of Oakland, it was a beautiful setting, and we have the best weather in the country for baseball. And, I sort of miss the days of that open feeling you had with the stadium, and that we no longer have because, they've renovated it and made it into a dual sport facility. So I sort of miss that. Listen, when we have big crowds, it's a challenge sometimes for, we don't, some of the, just getting a hot dog and is if there's a big crowd, it's this was an older stadium and it was built in a different era. It's no one's fault. That's just a fact. And sometimes the big crowds, it can be, challenging for people just manipulating themselves through the stadium and things like that. So, things that would make it sort of a greater fan experience. I would, thinking off the top of my head, we still, from a fan standpoint, the playing field is still a good distance away, even when you're in field seating. If you notice, a lot of the newer stadiums, they're closer to the field, so it's even more intimate. So that would be kind of neat if you could bring fans just a little bit closer to the action.
Mm. And Lou Wolf, Billy, managing general partner of the A's. I mean, the guy takes a beating sometimes from fans who think he wants to take their A's from Oakland. Fair or not, he's villainized at times. Can you give listeners a glimpse into Lou Wolf, Billy?
That's one of the toughest things. I get pretty protected. I can just tell you, he's an absolute. We are so. I feel lucky. He is really. First of all, he's a passionate fan. Mm-hmm. Okay, he really is, and he's very unique in this business. And he's not only that. He's a very warm, just a really nice person. And once again, that's the hardest thing I think for me is I think he gets sort of criticized. And with many cases, people don't know him personally. I have and listen, I got a long-term contract. There's no benefit in me to, I don't get any sort of brownie points for this, but I truly, really, really, he's a good businessman, but most of all, he's really just a really nice, warm person that cares about people. And listen, that's not always the case in that position. So I would say that if you knew him personally, he's an impossible person not to like.
And I realize it's only the first week of the season, Billy, but as a GM, what are some of the things you focus on to start the season?
Well, I think right now, you got to be, the one thing you got to get in shape as a GM. The opening night is such a surreal experience. It's one game, and the season is so long. So the first month of the season, I've always sort of view you want to put yourself in a position to really understand your strengths and your weaknesses, the corrections you need to make, and just you kind of draft a little bit, if that makes any sense. And then you can make adjustments. You hope that you stay healthy, but you really, it's like playing a golf course a little bit. You've really got to manage the course of the season. And a good example of that is like giving Coco the day off and giving Sammy full to start yesterday. Using a lot of your roster early on, seeing once again where you need to make some adjustments and corrections. And you do have to get in shape because for some reason when you lose your first game of the season, you curl up in the fetal position because you're not used to it. But when you go over 162 games, even if you lose 100 or win 100 games, you're going to lose 62 times. So you sort of start, it kind of evens out as you kind of get used to the ebbs and flows of the season.
Billy, is always great stuff. You've always given me time, and I'm grateful for it. Thanks again.
Well, thanks for your support, Dale, and let's go finish out this homestand.
Take care. And thank you, A's fans, for joining me on another special podcast where we celebrate the past and embrace the future of Oakland A's baseball. We'd like to encourage you to like our Facebook page. Just search A's Talk Now. And we're also on iTunes, and you can find us at A's Talk Now there as well. Enjoy the first week of the baseball season, and we'll talk soon, A's fans.